All right, boys and girls, we're back for another episode here of the Jeep Talk Show. I mean, I'm telling you, it's the Jeep Talk Show. Are you surprised? Did you just randomly hit the button? I mean, do I need to tell you it's the Jeep Talk Show? Well, let's see what I'm getting now. Let's press the button.
It sounds cool to say it.
It's kind of like the official way to start a show, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
And this reminds me. I don't know if you do much YouTubing. You probably do because you're probably looking stuff up and verifying people know what they're talking about. But I've noticed that the successful YouTube channels, they don't mess around. They just get right into it. And after a while, if you do a lot of YouTubing, when these people have the visual and audio intros where they show all this stuff, you're going, oh man, just come on, get this shit over with and get to the part where I'm learning something or you're answering my question or entertain me. This part of, and really what we're doing when we do that, I used to do that. I thought it was the way to do it. I think when we're doing that stuff, it's like, this is the way it's been presented to us for so many years. But even movies have started doing where they have the action just immediately, and there's no build up. It's like, get into it right away in action. And then it may slow down a little bit to get some of the story about what's going on, but you hit everybody with that action. So, and of course I'm doing my job by boring people by explaining all this, to them now, but I find it interesting how it's changed. And, if you guys, are watching, YouTubes and go, oh my God, why are they doing this 15-second intro that has no redeeming quality whatsoever? I get you, man. I know exactly where you're coming from. And we've tried stopping that here on the show. All right, Greg, I am going to ask you some questions about, is it hydraulic assist? Is that what you would call it? Hydraulic steering assist?
Hydraulic steering assist. If done correctly, it is a godsend. If you get it wrong, even by a little bit, it is a pain in the ass, and nobody likes it.
So where do you add the water? That's the part that I never understood is how do you get the hydro and the hydro assist?
Hydraulic, as in hydraulic oil pressure.
Oh,
it's abbreviation. So yeah, it's the hydraulic assist is actually works on the same principles as your normal power steering does, but the way those hydraulic forces are used can help prolong the life of your steering and make your steering effort so much more easy. Mm-hmm. But there's give and takes like everything else with Jeeps.
Sure. Is there a downside to it though? Can you break things easier with the hydraulic assist?
I wouldn't go so far as to say break things. Like again, that goes back to how it's set up. So if you have an easy example is if you're the actual hydraulic ram, which is a big component of the system we're talking about. It's a hydraulic cylinder that extends and compresses as it gets pressure.
Looks like a steering stabilizer. Yeah.
If you have that thing where it's travel, which is the amount that the actual ram and clevis can come in and out of itself, if that's not matched to your steering dimensions, then you can cause damage or undue on your joint ends, tie rod ends, can bow if you're using a steel or tubular steel type, tie rod of some kind that's not an aluminum one, you can cause it enough. I've seen hydraulic systems that were powerful enough where it would bow a DOM tie rod. So yeah, all the stuff has to be matched and all has to be put together right. So now, when people talk about turning their tires and wheels lock to lock, that would be full left and full right. That's full like whenever you're trying to make a turn and you keep turning that steering wheel, that gets to a point and you can't turn it any further. That would be one lock. Yeah. Yep. That's full lock. Then we swing it the other way. So they'll have you measure when you're deciding what size ram you want for travel, not diameter and piston size and all that stuff, but just the actual the travel of the ram. When they check that measurement in your steering, that's what we're doing. So we get full lock left to right after working with the center point. And it doesn't have to be like dead center on the axle. It's just we're measuring the distance that point that we're going to mount our clamp to, because one end of the ram has to mount to the axle in some form or fashion, and the end that's going in and out doing the work has to mount to your tie rod. And that's where the assist part comes in. That hydraulic cylinder is assisting and moving that tie rod back and forth as you cycle through the steering, instead of just the pitman arm coming off your steering box pushing on a drag link. So we're adding.
Would that replace the steering stabilizer? Because you don't do both, do you?
Yes. Okay. No. If you put on a hydraulic assist setup, you say bye bye to any of the passive or even adjustable steering stabilizers, you don't need it anymore.
If you have an above the axle tie rod steering stabilizer, can you use that same mounting area? Like if you took the steering
provided that the
stabilizer?
mounts is, the real estate's basically the same. Some packaging is going to be different depending upon the type of axle you have, what style of steering you have. If you're over under on the knuckle for your tie rod, if you're over under the knuckle for the drag link, what kind of track bar arrangement do we have on the front? So is it a factory bracket that's nice and close to the axle tube, or is it one that's been raised up to raise that track bar up and open up some more room? So I've seen it done before with smaller Rams where you can use exactly the mounting points that you would have used for your factory steering stabilizer, but I don't really recommend that because those mounting points are not really designed to handle the extra stress that a decent steering ram will exhibit. So
does that mean you're going to have to weld something onto the axle? I mean, I would think the mount to the tie rod would be fairly generic, but the axle
tie rods,
side,
it's either a single double shear clamp of some kind. There's steel ones out there, there's aluminum ones out there, all different varieties and styles and brands that go from $50 a pop to several $100s a piece. You just pick your favorite poison there. As far as axle side, the two schools of thought that most people use is we're going to mount it on the side where, like we were describing, under a Jeep, it would be a normal left-hand drive Jeep, the passenger side of the axle housing, because that gives you the most strong, sturdy real estate to mount those two tabs for that end of the ram and then clamp it on the other. I have seen it the other way where people will weld tabs onto their diff cover if they have an aftermarket fabricated diff cover that's made out of the plate steel. It's not like a paper thin factory one, and it's not a cast one. It's like the fabricated covers you see that where the welds are obvious. I've seen people burn them on there. Works for some folks don't like it. I'm not a fan of doing it that way because I don't want that sheer stress being put onto the diff cover, because most diff covers are there to hold the fluid in. They're not really meant as a structural component, load-bearing component, and the fasteners are not that big. Again, there's lots of us like myself, I'm sure maybe on a couple of your rigs, that the aftermarket diff covers are there in case we bang into something and we don't want to just fold up like 10.
They're pretty.
But that's that's an impact this way. It's not meant to the difference in where the forces are coming from. So I've always kind of shied away from mounting anything to the diff cover.
Yeah, you never want the diff cover leaking, and you don't want to be tweaking it. And there's always a possibility you didn't get it torqued down right, or things got vibrated and now it's a little loose. And I'm trying to remember. There's a company, several of them make it now, but there's a company where they fold like 1/4-inch steel and then weld parts of it, and they're just I want to say it's not Rough Country. God dang it, I can't remember. I have it on my XJ. Super nice diff covers, heavy things. But I mean. I'm probably going to go with an ARB on mine, but because I can get it in red, and again, it's pretty.
Then they're heavy duty. Those things they're not your prototypical aftermarket. The ARB ones are actually pretty stout for what they are, and their design.
Oh yeah, I figured. I'm joking around, but I figure they are. I mean, they make a wonderful locker, so I'm sure that the diff covers are nice too. So I guess we're jumping ahead of myself a little bit here. People are going, okay, so I know what hydraulic steering assist is. I understand where it mounts, I think. Why would I want one? I mean, it makes steering easier, obviously, but when would I want one?
So there becomes several different scenarios that you could find yourself in on the trail where having that additional steering force is absolutely golden. If you're running a front locker of any kind, selectable or just a full-time locker, and you're in four-wheel drive on any kind of surfaces that have high traction, like rocks, where you're just creeping and cruising, then being able to one finger that steering wheel the direction that you want to go without having to fight your locker. Anybody that's ever driven a Rubicon in the rocks knows what we're talking about. If you haven't, you'll get there someday, I hope. Traction devices are cool. But the idea being that we want to minimize driver fatigue. So I don't want to sit here all day and be just pulling on that steering wheel every time I want to change directions. The same thing goes if you're in deep mud, if you're in terrain that's real rutted, or, going up and over trees, fallen trees, that kind of stuff. Anything where you're going to exert yourself to force it to go the direction you want. That's where the steering is. It's not unlike re-gearing for a bigger tire, because bigger tires are part of this equation.
Yeah.
So the extra force needed to move those big tires in an off-road situation, most factory power steering systems fall short of being able to handle.
Well, they weren't designed for those size tires. Yeah.
So you're putting extra pressure against it on the input side via the driver, your input, and you're also subjecting it externally to higher pressures and forces than it normally would have been exerted to. So a hydraulic assist helps in both ways. A, it reduces the driver fatigue, makes it so much more pleasurable to wheel, and more importantly, in my book, it takes the stress off of everything else related to the steering that is a potential failure point in most factory steering systems. So if I'm not pushing my steering gearbox to do all the work, I'm not pushing my factory power steering pump to do all the work, I upgrade certain components in the steering, or all of it, depending upon which kit you choose, and you relieve those stresses. The components are able to work more readily and last longer and perform better. And again, you get to enjoy the ride more.
Wouldn't the steering box and the whole steering system, because it can get hot while you're using it, especially out in the rocks and stuff, and you can actually get a failure because of the heat, or a fading. Can you get a steering fading?
Yep. You can smoke seals and stuff inside the pump. You can definitely smoke stuff inside the power steering gearbox. Again, the aftermarket ones, we'll just use PSC as an example because it's so widely known.
Right.
Not only do you have the opportunity to get an upgraded pump with your power steering gearbox, and you can get those in a factory style box that's just ported for the Ram, you can do just those components, and you're already light years ahead of what a factory system would be. But heat, just like with automatic transmissions, that's a big, big issue. What do all the PSC aftermarket full kits come with? Really nice coolers, inline coolers that are standalone. Now, you can make them active if it's depending upon the style you choose, because they've got some that are just long tubes that have the heat sinks on them, and it's a port on either end. So it's, about a foot to 14 inches long and probably about 3 or 4 inches in diameter. It's just a big heat sink pass through. So it's passive radiator. They've also got the plate style ones, which look like small radiators, like a regular transmission cooler or something. And you can absolutely put forced air over one of those. Toot sweet if you want to. It's no problem. So you have a lot of options there. And again, you're lowering operating temperatures. You're reducing the stress of the rest of the components. The PSC big bore box is a huge step up for like the TJ, JK, even LJ guys, Gladiator guys. The sector shaft is that spline shaft that comes out of the bottom of your steering gearbox that your pitman arm connects to. It works just like an axle shaft does. If you push on it too hard and you twist it too much or you shock load it too much, it'll snap just like an axle shaft will. So the big bore boxes that PSC offers, that component and that portion of the casting of the box, they're all much bigger and much beefier. So they'll take more abuse. You can run that box as standalone without doing anything else, and you're already improving your steering capability. But when you put the right components together, PSC is just one of many. There's a lot of them out there that range from very affordable to super expensive. But for your average Jeeper, you're going to probably fall in that mid-range category for what most folks are going to be doing with it that desire or think they need hydraulic assist. That's the easiest way to answer that part of your question. If you're struggling to steer your rig while you're off-road or even while you're on-road, you can be in two-wheel drive on the pavement. If you're still fighting them tires everywhere you go trying to steer, look into it. It's not an off-road only thing. So
good. And I think you just answered my next question, which is, can you use it on road? I mean, maybe you don't go off-road, maybe too much, but you would like to have that additional ability to turn the wheels, especially if it's slow or not moving. Yep. So you could put it on there and there would be no downside other than you just having a little less money in your pocket.
Pretty much it. Provided it's set up correctly. That's where people can run into trouble. It's like, picking the wrong tire or getting a botched gear job or anything else. If you don't put it together right, like I said, you're probably in the neighborhood of between $2,250 and $2,650 for a decent PSC full-on kit that is all-inclusive for like a late model Jeep. And if you don't do it right, that's a big pill to swallow if you got to start over and go pay
if you had to do it again or trash the whole thing. So, whenever when you go to install this hydraulic steering assist, what's the magic that makes it go left and right? Does it just boost when the tie rod's moving? It knows which way to go, or what's the magic? Is it Bluetooth? Is there a Bluetooth connection here?
There's ports, though. So, and again, I'll go back to PSC because they're one of the better examples. Most of their in-house style boxes have an external portion of the gearbox that is a billet aluminum or billet steel, depending upon variant. It is a portion that has 2 extra pressure ports on it. So basically, it's utilizing the pressure being generated by the power steering pump that is being fed into the steering gearbox, and it ports some of that pressure with fluid down to your hydraulic ram. So you get that extra boost of push. That type of fluid, like all it's the Swepco 715 is what most of the PSC stuff runs with. There's some of them that'll tell you something a little different, but you can't compress oil like you can't compress water. It's not like air. Can't compress water, can't compress oil. So it doesn't take that much pressure. When you add some pressure to it, that force has got to go somewhere. And then it pushes one side or the other of the piston. Inside that, there's a piston with O-rings and valving on it on the end of, think of the ram in the simplest of terms. It's the main body of it is a tube. And then inside that tube, we have a rod that has a disc piston on it. It goes into the tube. You put pressure on one side, it's going to push the piston that way. If you put pressure on the other side, it'll push the piston that way. And that's it. It's actually a very, very simple, concept. It's the execution that's a little bit more tricky because you have to have
if you look at
volumes, pressures, all that stuff have to match.
Yeah, if you look at the tractors and things, the earth movers and I'm brain farting on all the tractor type things that they use for construction or digging up dirt. They're all hydraulic. They have all these hydraulic rams on there. That's how they move those buckets and stuff.
Yep, it's the same thing. And most of those pieces of equipment you're describing all utilize some form or fashion of full hydraulic steering.
Yeah,
like a forklift or something like that. There is no like drag link to a steering gearbox with a steering column that has to tie into that. It's a remote valve. This will get a lot of people upset in a hurry because some folks that don't know will argue this point with you. The commonly accepted term is orbital valve, which is the actual valve that sits with the steering shaft in it for a hydraulic setup. It's a metering valve or a steering valve. An orbital valve in the hydraulic world is a whole different component. So the only place you hear people calling it an orbital valve and getting away with it is if they are specifically talking about hydraulic steering. That's a whole nother episode because full hydraulic steering, that takes you in a whole nother direction. But for the steering assist, one of my favorite aspects of it, and it doesn't matter if you're a first-time wheeler or a seasoned wheeler like us, if for some reason something on the hydraulic side of the equation fails, you still have standalone mechanical to fall back on. You can still get out. You can still get home. To me, that's huge. That's like it's double redundancy. Even if I may not be able to enjoy the rest of my weekend wheeling because I don't have the, easy peasy steering effort, but I can still get out of the trail. I can still get home. I can get back to camp. I'm still mobile. So that means
and I think that's a
good
point to make. You don't really with the hydraulic. I mean, I think it is designed to be assist, not steering. But you literally could replace the mechanical steering with just the hydraulic steering. You don't have to have both. However, to be legal, you have to have both.
Well, yes, no. It depends on your state. Some states are cool with it, some are not. Like if it is
really?
A commercial in Texas, there's no specific law in the safety code that says that you can't have full hydro on the pavement. And since they did away with the inspections anyway, nobody has to worry about passing that.
Right.
The thing that I would fear, the one thing, and it ties right back to what we we're just talking about, for a rig that sees any legit road use, okay, like you're going up and down the road with it. If you have full hydraulic steering, that means other than the hoses connecting your valve to your rams or ram, if you have front and rear, you have multiple rams, but that's it. There is no other physical connection between the steering wheel and that axle. If you lose a hose,
Yeah,
if
you
you
pop a
lose a
hose.
fitting,
It's like, well, there's no reason to steer now.
that's it. If you lose pressure at 2 mile an hour on the trail, that's one thing. But if you're going down the freeway and something in that system decides to give up the ghost at 70 miles an hour, you can't steer. You're done.
Yeah, you're
And that
just
person,
hoping for centrifugal force right now for the wheels to stay going straight.
exactly. I just you better hope that bitch will stop, because
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to pull it off the road by the steering wheel. It's just one of those. I'm too fearful for my own safety and those on the road with me.
Well, there's going to be a
wanna
family
do
member
that.
or somebody driving your vehicle, and
To
if
me,
you're
it's
like
not
me,
worth
you
it.
don't want them. Yeah, you don't want them involved in it. Now, if
Yeah.
it's an off-road only rig, I can certainly see
If it's
just doing
trailer,
away with everything.
yeah. But again, we kind of go back to where we started. For a lot of people first getting into it, they're not going to find themselves on a level of trail difficulty or axle build or tire size that's going to be like, hey, you need full hydraulic steering right off the bat. That's usually, it takes people some time to get there, unless you're a professional off-roader racer or something. Now, there's plenty of shade tree guys running full hydro. Don't get me wrong. They didn't start off that way, most of them. There might be a few that did, but most people work into that because it's a pretty sincere commitment once you get there.
Yeah. Now, you made a statement about the hydraulic assist in the rear. That would be for a steerable rear axle, correct?
Yes. Correct.
Okay. I just didn't want that to get too far away from the people going, why would you have one on the back? Well, if it's for those people that have the rear steel, which makes the turning radius a lot better, or you can wiggle around through stuff a lot easier when you can steer front and rear. Whenever you, and this isn't a rear steering thing, that'd be a fun subject. Whenever you go ahead, whenever you're doing a rear steer, do you control it with like a little lever, or is there? How do you? Because I could well imagine that would be difficult to steer one and the other. If you're going slow, not such a big deal. But if you're moving through there a little fast, you could get yourself in trouble.
So most of the setups that I've seen, and a lot of it's taken out of like the rock bouncing world and stuff, they'll either have like what looks like just a little joystick that can click one way or the other, and it self-centers every time you let go of it. So it's like a spring-loaded deal.
So it's all the way. It's not an adjustable turn.
It's just, if you pull it halfway, then it steers halfway. If you pull it all the way over, it goes full.
But when you let go, it goes back to the middle. When you let go,
if they have, because you can have auto center, you can have it to where it doesn't. There's some guys that want to control it the whole time. There's some guys that want it to return to center when they let go of the stick.
I think return to center sounds like a really good idea.
Really good idea. The Busted Knuckle has a joystick. You remember the old Hurst shifters that look like pistol grips?
Yeah.
You remember those from back in the day? So Busted Knuckle has a CNC machine version that just has a micro switch in the top of it. And you can have the switch set up to where you rock it one way or you pull it forward and backward, just like a jet fighter type deal. But the stick itself doesn't actually move. It becomes a handle that you mount, so that when you've got this hand on the wheel and this hand down here on the rear steer, you've got something to brace yourself with, just like holding on to a shifter, except all you got to do is tap the button with your thumb to get the back end to do what you want. That's their version.
How do you hold your girl's hand whenever you have that situation? Your hands are full at that point.
If you're running like those guys run, you ain't holding nobody's hand but God's. You ain't got time for none of that. There's too much else going on. But again, there is a line with the off-road enthusiasts that I've met, that it's kind of like with Jeep people. With Jeep people, there's a level that once you get past 35-inch tall tires, you like to kind of think of yourself as a pretty serious wheeler. They get that little bit of ego, and it's like, I got 37s, man. I ain't no palm. Well, then they meet people that have like 40s and 42s and 1-ton swaps and V8s, and then they go, oh, crap, I'm still a noob. I'm nowhere near where those guys are at. Well, then you get where those guys are at, and you think, all right. Now I'm cooking. Now I'm doing something. I got my big meats. I got my big axles. I got my big motor. And then, oh, shit, you meet Mr. Buggy. And, he's got portals and front and rear steer and supercharger and, 20-inch travel, triple bypass shot. And all of a sudden, you're right back to where you were when you stepped away from your 35s, because that rear steer is like separates the men from the boys.
Yeah, but that's the fun of this sport. There's always more you can do, always more you can learn. You don't have to do this to be a real wheeler or a real Jeeper. No. Yeah. It's just interesting, and you can take it as far as you like. So that's the wonderful thing about this sport. All right, let me jump back to something else that you had said, because I want to make sure people understand what this is. I asked how does the hydraulic steering assist actually get actuated for left and right, and you said there's a box. So
Well, yeah,
is that box a steering box, or do you replace the steering box on your system? I imagine you can or you can't. But
so if you do the version like the PSCs, it already comes pre-ported if you order it that way, and it tells you in the instructions which port to connect to where on the Ram to get
that's helpful.
Path.
Yeah, like having the hoses hooked up right is good.
You can get it wrong, and if you get it wrong, you try to turn the steering wheel.
You'd be fighting yourself.
Things go wonky. It's a weird. Excuse me, it's a weird feeling. But there's other ones that are like the West Texas off-road one with their redneck Ram. It's still ported. It uses the same principle, but it's a little bit different because most of their stuff is like OEM style boxes that they just tap and port to work with one of their Rams or whatever Ram you want to use. So the only problem that I have with those types of setups is that you're still working with the factory internals on an OEM style box, right, the gearbox itself. So it's like if you're somebody that's running a 35 or a 37 and you're not really thrashing on the thing in the rocks, well, that's a very awesome setup to have, and it's very affordable versus like a full-on PSC kit. But if you know you're going to beat on it a little bit harder, you want the more substantial strength in other areas, then that's, and it's not, I know I keep saying PSC, but there's other brands that you can look at.
That's the most popular
PSC
solution.
is really, really popular, has been for a while. They've got an awesome selection. Their products, from my personal and professional experience, have always been top notch. And I've done a lot of their system. I've got their full blown system on my JKU. There's no factory steering left on mine. It's all been gone for a while. So, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. I did run before that when I still had my Dana 44s and my smaller tires. I did run the Redneck Ram from West Texas Off-Road, and I actually just wore the thing plumb out. I ran it for so long and so hard that after
it lasted. It lasted a good long time, right? Yeah.
3 years of like sincere wheeling and daily driving use. Like it did really good for what I was subjecting it to.
Right.
So, but you have to weigh that. It's like a lot of the stuff we do to our Jeeps. Pros and cons as far as cost, ease of installation. Like most of the installation for your average hydro assist kit, other than the welding for the mounting tabs on the axle side, it's pretty straightforward nuts and bolts stuff. It's not like it's super complicated. I would always highly recommend with anything else that you're doing, the steering or suspension, you're going to want to have your alignment checked when you're done, just because. It's one thing to eyeball in the garage and tape measure your toe, but you really do need to make sure that you've got everything where it's supposed to be if you're putting the thing up and down the road, like legitimately. Right. So you're going to have that expense. The fluid's more expensive for most of these. There's some of the kits that'll work fine with your factory fluids. There's some that won't. So you have to look at that. Again, the ease of installation. Am I paying someone to put it in, or is it something I can do in a weekend at the house? Let the boy hold the flashlight for me, and I'll try not to cuss him too much, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So,
and you can always pull the steering stabilizer off, take the bracketry, which you can probably get Barnes or somebody that you need.
Yeah, any of the big name aftermarket has
take it down to somebody
available.
Yeah, take it down to somebody, get it welded on. You should be able to drive just fine without the steering stabilizer. Bring it back home. And bolt this stuff up. Okay, I'm still not real clear on the box. I mean, I think I am in my head, but I want to make sure the end user that we're talking to is. So when you say the box from PSC, you are talking about another steering box, one that they have that has holes in it for the lines extra that run holes. From extra holes that run from that steering box to the hydraulic steering assist, so you can do the left-right type stuff. So you can't do this with a standard steering box. I mean, I guess there may be some way you could port it and thread it and do it yourself. Okay. But I wouldn't say, I'm like you. If you're going to go this direction, you might as well get something that's already designed for it. One more thing before you go. I can see you're ready to go. I was talking to a friend of mine that has a 2020 Gladiator, and he has the aluminum steering box. And he was investigating what he could do, because I think there's actually there's a replacement or something from Stellantis.
Yeah, they had a whole TSV and warranty exchanges and recalls on those things. It was horrible.
And either he can't get it, or it's going to cost him a certain amount of money. He looked up getting a PSC with the ports in it, and you just plug the holes with they come plugged anyway.
Yep, you just put caps on them.
Was cheaper and better than what they were going to put in there.
Yep.
So this
ESC
isn't
has
something
a
that's wild
full-on
and
kit
crazy.
to get rid of that electric over hydraulic crap that comes on the late model Jeeps. You can get rid of that if you don't like it. And where that electric motor goes down on the opposite side of the engine bay, down underneath the airbox, PSC uses that space to put in. It's actually part of the reservoir tank for their system, which adds fluid
Nice.
capacity, which even helps further with anti-foaming and keeping the temperatures down and cooling and all that stuff. It's a really neat setup. But
Sure.
as I
Okay.
say,
Dumb
you
question.
can port a factory box. But
does my 21 have the electric assist? Do I have an electric motor on there?
Yeah, well, you'd know if you did. It wasn't standard.
No, I
on all of
wouldn't.
them. Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, if you just take a peek, if you either open the hood or if you've got your fender well out where you can see in there, passenger side frame rail just behind the radiator down and under your airbox. If you have and some of them you can see right through the fender well too. There's enough break between that plastic liner and the top of the frame. You can see it sitting there. It almost looks like one of those brush motors off of a bench grinder or something. Its shape, its
Really?
dimensions. It's like like the keg barrel you would see under a St. Bernard. It's
Right.
about that size, right? And what it is, it's an electric motor that's supplying the hydraulic pressure to the steering in lieu of a belt-driven power steering.
So it's like a pump. I got you.
It's a pump, but it's an electric over hydraulic setup.
That sounds bad.
They can be kind of quirky. The wife's Jeep's got that set up on it, and there are times that if you start it up and if you try to go into gear and turn the wheel before the RPMs have settled down, it'll at you. Because the engine's the computer's trying to tell the pump what to do based on your input and what the computer is reading all the other sensors and stuff. It doesn't just work off of your input alone. It's also looking at everything else. Sure. Steering angle sensor in the steering wheel, RPMs of the engine, your road speed, because it will vary just like you can with a hydraulic pump, like on a lift or anything else. It will vary the speed to increase and decrease the pressure demand.
Right.
Which you can't do on an engine.
I had
it's
no
going to run
idea.
at whatever RPM the engine's at.
Yeah, I had no idea. I'll have to look and see if I've got that. I don't like that setup. I mean, you can have a fuse blow I'm sure you can still steer the thing, but it's going to be more like a manual, probably worse than manual steering.
It'll be a dead stick style. It'll be a dead stick steer. Yeah. It'll steer mechanically, but it's going to feel like crap and you're not going to like it. It's just, it'll get you home.
So for you folks who never had a car with manual, non-power steering, you want to turn the wheel, you want to plan your turns. You want to turn the wheel while the vehicle's moving.
While the tires are rotating. Makes it easy. Well, that, and again, kind of like the ratio, believe it or not, there are different ratios for different steering gearboxes. Mm-hmm. And intrepid off-roaders and shade tree mechanics have figured out over the years that there are different boxes that will fit our applications that will provide more or less of something that they like or don't like.
Yeah, I think the Dodge Dakota steering box, depending on which one you were getting, was a great replacement, like for a TJ and an XJ, because it had a better ratio, and I think they were stronger as well since they were made for a truck.
Well, there was the Chevy Astrovan one that was real popular for the guys that wanted to push them forward when they did an axle swap instead of having that long snout. Remember AGR? I think they're still around. AGR was a big one for like the YJ and TJ steering stuff for a long time. AGR, do you remember them?
No, I don't remember that.
They were like an earlier version of Redhead or like PSC where they made their own steering gearboxes and associated components. I think they're still around. I haven't heard from them in a while, but anyway, I think it was Astrovan. Chevy. There was a certain year model range of Chevy Astrovan you could swap that one for that one, but then the Rubicon had a different one too, didn't it? Like it was a Mercedes.
It just makes it that much more fun when you go into Advanced Auto and you're telling them what you need. All right. So anyway, I interrupted you talking about the porting of the stock factory steering box.
A ported and tapped factory box. Basically, you end up with one line of pressure and one for return. And it's sort of, because what ends up happening is the place that you would tap the factory box to get pressure, you have to have somewhere to put the fluid back into the system. And so they just tap the barrel of the main body of the casting for the return. So it works, but it's not as effective as having one that the fluid circuit basically has dedicated paths that were designed to do that instead of just piggybacking off of existing paths. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the aftermarket versions work a whole lot more smoothly and honestly, I think more effectively than
It
if
sounds
you
like there might even be some delay of doing the tapping your original box.
There can be. Again, it depends. Like there's a difference just two-door to four-door in the JK world. The two-door and four-door JK steering boxes, because of wheelbase differences, have a different lock-to-lock ratio. So you can speed it up or slow it down by swapping boxes from one to the other. They're physically identical. There's no special.
Yeah, it's just like a gear or a couple of gears that are inside. I think.
It's the ratio of the actual. How many turns does it take me from lock to lock to swing that thing, the pitman all the way through its travel? It's hard to say that there's really a bad thing about it when it comes to hydraulic assist. Again, if you're choosing quality components and done properly, because it's really a win-win no matter what you're doing. It's one of those things that once you've experienced a good setup, you won't want to go back to anything else as far as stock or stock-ish. It's like once you've had the feel of a good setup, it's like, man, especially when you get to the larger tire sizes.
So let me ask you this. Would it be, I don't think anybody would do it, but could you put it on a brand new, you got your Jeep and you said, I'm just going hydro assist on this. I got the money. I'm just going to go with it now. Would there be any reason not to do it to a stock vehicle? I'm trying to get to the answer the point of where would you consider doing this? I mean, you said earlier, if you're having trouble steering, that's a good indicator.
Right.
But it wouldn't hurt anything. I would think that you could go, I mean, brand new Jeep, get the box, put it on, get it installed, the whole 9 yards. And now you're ahead of the game. And actually you're going to extend the life of the wear and tear on the steering parts of your vehicle.
Absolutely. Because if you have the pocketbook to support it, and want to get that one out of the way, you don't have to wait. It's not like there's no magic line in the sand that you have to wait to cross to say, okay, now I need hydraulic assist. Right. It's the folks that if you're weighing that option, like, do I need it or do I not need it? Well, then if you're not experiencing the things that we've been talking about, then you're probably not ready for it yet. Don't waste the money just yet.
Well, and the situation is you're out on the trail with Joe Bob or you're at the mall and Joe Bob has it. And you ask Joe Bob, why did you put that on there? And he says, well, when I went to 40s, it was necessary. So then in your head, it's like, I need to be on 40s before I do this. That's not the case.
It is, but it's not. And it goes back to like having the 4-to-1 under there. If the guy that's driving around in the Rubicon with the 392 under the hood, he never goes off road. He just slapped a set of 40s under it, called it a day, still running 410s, factory axle shafts. He may not care enough about the difference in steering effort.
Well, he's driving too fast anyway. His steering is easy.
That guy's not going to worry about it, But the person that spends the first year or so driving their Jeep basically stock and getting used to it that way, and then they peel off and do lift kit, tires, gears, lockers all at once, they go out the next time thinking they're going to own the trail, right? Only to realize that, well, they didn't upgrade the brakes, they didn't upgrade the drive shafts, and they didn't upgrade the steering. Oh, but I got RPM aluminum steering. I got this. But you're still relying on that factory pitman arm and that factory steering gearbox and that factory pump to push those big tires where you want them to go. So that's when you make the mistake of, oh crap, I've crossed the line. Now I got to do something about it. So.
All right, so we've established that you can put this stuff on whenever you want to. There's really not a bad time. Would you say that if you put on a hydraulic assist steering when you were on stock or even this 35-inch tires, say Dana 44s, the Dana 30 or 44, depending on if it's a Wrangler or a Gladiator, and you went with you started going up to like 37s. I think we established that last episode that 37s are probably about as big as you want to go locked on a 44. Would you need to change it? Yeah. That's all we're doing is recommending it. You do whatever the hell you want to do, and then crying when it breaks. If you it's just like, well, we told you, but you didn't listen. No. Anyway, so would you have to change anything with the hydraulic steering assist going from stock tires to the 37s? Could you still use the same system?
Not necessarily. The only reason you have to change anything is if you changed one of the physical parameters that, like your axle housing. if you went with crate axles over your stock axle, or if you changed from
the axles that you
something
originally
like that.
installed
But
it on.
beyond that, no, you don't. There's no reason to have to change any of it. Once it's dialed in, it's dialed in. And again, the effort that it saves the driver from fatigue and the stress that it takes off the rest of the power steering components, I wouldn't hesitate. Now that I know what I know, if I could go back in time 20 years,
Isn't that always the case? All the money you would have saved.
You know, it's like I would go back to my first 35-inch tired rig, and I would be all over that bad boy with hydro assist. Like, this is a game changer if it's done right. You know, it's so much better. It is one of those things that you hear a lot of people talk about, and if you're not there yet, you have to kind of, oh, it sounds like those fancy bead locks, or that sounds like that one crazy winch, or that sounds like that other whatever cool kid thing that's next in line for the Jeep, you know. Do I really need it? Well, I can honestly say on this particular topic, well, yeah, don't wait till you get to 40s. Enjoy the fruits of it on your smaller tires too, because it's just awesome to have.
It's one less thing you have to do when you get to put the 40s on there. It's not, I got the 40s on there and go, oh, holy crap, I need to do something else. It's
There's
like we love to say here,
going to a 40-inch tire. You don't want the, you don't want that hickey at the end of it.
So it's like we always like saying here, no modification goes unpunished. And this is exactly what we're talking about. And we're trying to give you a heads up by telling you about this stuff. We're not trying to encourage you to buy the thing, but just to get, because I mean, if you're like me, everybody has the question, like when they find out about the hydraulic steering assist, it's like, oh, that sounds cool. Would I really ever need that? And that's what we're trying to answer here. Now, speaking of needing that, you've alluded to the cost. Well, actually, before we get into cost, how long would you expect the hydraulic steering assist to last? I think you said 3 years on yours.
Yeah, like I said, my first Redneck Ram steering gearbox, I got about 3 years out of it. The current big bore PSC that's in the Jeep now is about 2 years old, and I guarantee you it's been whammied on a lot harder than my previous setup was. So I have zero complaints about my current setup. But again,
what is it that you need to fix to fix the Redneck one that only lasted 3 years? Was it a complete?
I mechanically wore it out internally. Is
it just the piston thing, or?
Gear. Okay. Yeah, no, I just wore it out. There are some gears in there. There's trying to think how best to describe them. It's similar to a ring and pinion, but it's a little bit different. But they wear over time, just like anything else.
Sure.
And when you start running a hydraulic cylinder in that system, you've introduced other, fluid paths and contamination possibility points and all this other stuff. And so with a stock gearing box like that one, you're asking more of it than I was asking more of it than it was going to give me for the service life of the vehicle. But I was very abusive to it. So it's not a fair, like, I'm not trying to say, well, PSC is better than Redneck Ram. No, it's your budget dictates which one's better to you. I abuse my stuff. So don't ever, if I say it lasted me 3 years, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And when you say abuse, you're not being mean to it. You're out there enjoying the trails, and you're putting it through its paces, and it's I'm just normal off-road. Yeah. So the part that you're
murdering it.
The part that you would replace to repair that would be the steering box, or can you?
Yeah, well, you can rebuild them.
So the Ram itself, the Ram itself was fine. It was just the part. Okay.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be looking at spending. I think you mentioned $2,400 for the PSC system. What is the price range for the PSC? What would be the
low end,
the minimal that you would recommend?
Yeah, on the low end, you're for a decent starter system, you're probably pushing $2,000, if not a little over. And then there's other boxes you can tick to add to that kit to make it more inclusive or much more better. Like if you go with the standard hydro assist steering gearbox versus the big bore box, that's a huge difference in most of the pricing right there. I think the standalone gearbox is just over $1,000 for the regular one. Like $1,250, something like that. And then the big bore box is significantly more expensive. It's like $1,800 to $2,000, depending upon version you're getting it from.
Big scheme of things, that's not too bad. I mean, if it's that much better.
But for your average wheeler, that might be, and that's just that one component. Like I said, if your level of wheeling versus your desire to have cool things under your rig. versus your pocketbook. So if it's one of those things where you know you're putting it through its paces, then it's worth spending that big chunk all at once.
Yeah, it's good for on-road and off-road. So it's not like you're just spending this for off-road.
Right. No,
so let me ask
it is an upgrade that you get to enjoy all the time.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. I think you mentioned before we started recording that the Redneck, what was the company name, the full company name?
West Texas Off-Road.
West Texas Off-Road. I think you were saying they're about half the cost of the PSC system. Is that correct?
And the reason is that the main reason is because they still make their own cylinders and stuff, just like PSC does. The difference is they take either your existing steering gearbox, if it's serviceable, like it's in good working condition, and they will port and tap that one for you, or you can purchase a pre-ported and tapped one from them and just turn yours in as a core, like if you were buying a battery or anything else from an auto parts store.
So that's not the best way to go, based on what you're saying. It'd be better to have a purpose-built.
Their price scheduling is half of what you would spend for comparable gearbox that, and RAM setup from somebody like PSC or one of the other outfits. But again, it's the difference in the components themselves. If you're working with a rebuilt OEM style box or a non-rebuilt that's just been tapped and ported, like I say, if you didn't want them to rebuild it while they were in there, I don't know why anybody would do that. But I've tapped and ported a few on my own. It's nerve-wracking, but it's not ultimately difficult if you just pay attention to what you're doing. It's a pain in the ass to keep the chips out of them if you don't want to take it off. To do it right, you do need to completely disassemble the steering gearbox. But there's
a little metal in there is going to be devastating.
Yeah, there's methods that people advertise on YouTube where, look, this is how you do it without draining the fluid, without taking it apart. I'm just like,
are there Q-tips involved? I get the feeling there's
Please
Q-tips.
Don't do that. Just a little grease on the tap, and it'll catch all them thread filings.
Every one of them, guaranteed, 50% of the time.
No, please.
So let me ask you this: Does the Redneck steering? Do they do the full? Do they have a box? I mean, it would be more expensive, but do they have a system comparable to the PSC where it's not something that's hacked and tapped?
I don't think they're currently offering any off-the-shelf component kits or in kit form that will get you on the level of what some of the PSC stuff can.
Okay.
Now, I will be honest, it's been probably a few months since I last looked at their website, so I have to go back and check to be 110% sure. But as of my last dealings with them, which like I said, I used to have their system on mine and I've installed it for other people. For the money, if you're a budget-minded entry-level wheeler, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. And they can custom make the cylinder to any spec you want them to. It's not like you're just stuck with one size fits all. They custom build all their own cylinders and their hoses and stuff.
And correct me on the name on this. I don't have it in front of me. Is it Platinum Off-Road Driveline or Platinum?
No, the shop that I run is Platinum Drivetrain Works, and then the main shop is Platinum Off-Road.
Okay, so Driveline would indicate that that's pretty much all you do, ring and pinion, that type of stuff. But you do more there. Do you also install the
steering upgrades?
PSC, steering upgrades. So, what is the predominant one? And I know the answer to this, but what is the predominant one that you install?
Yeah, the one I've done the most of, hands down, is PSC. It seems to really be one of the most popular. Again, there are some other good names out there like Howe Steering. And a couple of others, but they're more well-known in ultra-high performance off-road racing circles and a lot less known when it comes to average weekend warrior Jeep. So PSC is just one of the ones that they've made a big footprint.
It's a safe brand to go with. Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
A safe brand to go with.
I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it. But again, there's fanboys like there is for anything else. There's fanboys out there that can't stand PSC. There's fanboys out there that can't stand BFG tires because they're a Mickey Thompson fan or whatever it is. I'll always go back to my old standby. If you're just not sure, find somebody at your local Jeep club or your local Jeep run that has what you're looking for or a system similar, and go check it out. Jeep people love to show off their stuff. They'll be more than happy to cover it all with you and be like, I got this. What do you like and not like about it? What hassles has it given you? All that kind of stuff.
And they'll also tell you what to look out for.
Exactly. Yep. So,
all right. Well, is there? I know we've only covered this for a brief time, but was there anything else that you wanted to mention about this stuff before we roll on out of here? Get back on the trail.
The main thing that I stress about all of it is, like I do on gears or tires or anything else, do your homework. Learn and educate yourself as much as possible about that particular system that you've got your eye on, because the more you know about it going into it, the less likely you are to be shocked or surprised on the back end if something goes amiss or you're not sure or whatever, because it is a healthy chunk of money to spend all at once if you go with one of the all-inclusive kits. And it's like so many of these other things, you want to get it right the first time. So don't just go into it blindly thinking that the more I spend, the better it's going to be. You got to match your components, make sure that it's installed properly, make sure everything's dialed in, make sure it's, because it is a hydraulic steering system, it still has to be bled. It's not as simple as just dump a quart of fluid in it and go down the road. No, there is a whole
brakes or anything else.
Specific bleed process for hydraulic steering.
Yeah, you said it earlier. Air doesn't compress; only liquid compresses. So if you have air in the lines, it just won't work.
You got to get it out.
All right. So and mention, okay, we didn't. You didn't even start with. I didn't give you an opportunity to mention the shop before before we started. Tell people they want to. No. I mean, it's important. I mean, well, you're answering all these questions. You're establishing yourself as a technical authority here, and they're going, well, where the hell is he? I want to use him.
I got my evening shirt on tonight, and I don't have the company hat on either. So, Greg Nickel from Platinum Drivetrain Works, sister shop to Platinum Off-Road, which is our main custom shop. So the drivetrain shop is located in Hutto, Texas, and the main shop is located in Rockwall, Texas, just outside of Dallas. So for between the two shops, we pretty much do anything you want us to do to a Jeep or other 4x4. We got you covered. So
and if you're looking for somebody to upgrade your ring and pinion so you can get the higher numerical gear ratio, it's hard to find a place that I trust. So if you're like me, Greg's been doing this for a really long time, and he'll hook you up. But don't try to tell him that you didn't do the break-in, that you did the break-in procedure, because he'll know.
If you didn't, I will know. I will know. It's
He's like
crazy,
Santa Claus.
Tony. I've been doing this for so long now that when I say how long I've been doing it, when someone asks me, it's like, how many ring and pinions have you installed? I'm like, my gut wants to say hundreds, but then I really think about it, and I think back to the early 90s when I first did it, and it's like, it's over 3 decades. I've lost track of how many I've done. I've probably forgotten more than I can remember. I've done so damn many of them over the years. It's just like, wow. So
it's nice though once you get used to it.
For the gear install aspects of what I'm doing, but I've had the pleasure and the joy and some sadness in being encompassed in pretty much all aspects of building rigs and the racing stuff.
I could well imagine it's just like anything. You do it enough times, and it's just like it makes it. That ain't something you really have to think through. It's just what you expect, and then you see something, you go, well, that's not right, and then you go, okay, and then you it's just like a lot of it is
muscle memory. Yeah. The guys that play a lot of golf, the guys that do a lot of spirited driving, guys that ride bikes, or guys that, any kind of sport, any kind of thing that if you're a competitive shooter, even if you just go to the range every weekend, you don't have to sit there and tell yourself, okay, now rotate my wrist, extend my thumb, and you're just. You know what it's supposed to feel like. If something's wrong with your sidearm. If there's something wrong with your putter. There's something wrong with your fishing reel. So it's the action's not quite right there. What's going on here?
Right.
We take a lot of pride in being able to sort those things out and be proficient at them. And ring and pinions is the same way. It's just there's so much at stake if you get it wrong.
Exactly.
So when you go from doing a few for yourself to now you're doing some for your friends to now you might be doing a few, every couple of months at the shop you go to work for, and then you go to an off-road shop and now you're doing a set a week, and you go from that to an even more inclusive off-road shop and now you're doing them 2 or 3 times a week. And then you find yourself at a dedicated custom shop where it's a daily occurrence every day. And it's just like,
if you guys don't know, if you guys don't know, installing ring and pinion isn't righty tighty, lefty loosey, and 3 UGGs and you're done. You can get away with a lot of stuff with the UGGs. All right, well, that's a really interesting conversation. People are really enjoying these technical things. They just hate that I keep interrupting you, but damn it, I got to say something.
I won't shut up if you don't tell me to every once in a while.
I can't just sit here and look pretty, All right, so did this Jeep Talk Show episode get your engine roaring? Show us some love by dropping a 5-star rating and a blazing review on your go-to podcast platform. It's your way to help us expand our Jeep family. Keep the adventure rolling by hitting follow on social media and joining our newsletter crew for the hottest Jeep updates. Got a burning question on or a wild idea for our next episode? Fire it over to us at xjtalk.com/contact. Oh, and I'll mention that if you have, Greg, you mentioned do your homework. People could do their homework here. They could send us a message and ask questions. And what's your recommendation for my 21 Jeep Gladiator Max Tow package? And what should I do for PSC? What should I do with gears? What should I do with tires? We're trying to answer that here on the show.
Absolutely. Send those questions in, guys. Yeah. We would love to handle helping you talk through that stuff, or at least discussing your options. Because there is no such thing as one size fits all when it comes to Jeeping. Like, we could take this in so many different directions based on what you guys want to hear, see, or do. And if you have any kind of technical questions, install questions, brand questions, you guys, I know you haven't seen enough of me yet to know, but my filter's not as pretty as Tony's. I'm like,
that's great. I don't have a filter.
If you ask me
personally or professionally
about the wrong thing, I'm going to let you know. So
yeah, no, it's all good, and we'd love hearing from you. And you can just go right there on YouTube, Rumble, or go to jeeptalkshow.com/contact. Send us an email, send us a voicemail. There's all kinds of ways you can contact with us. Love to hear from you, even if it's not something that is earth-shattering. We still love hearing from you. It's great to interact. Yeah. And if you do a voicemail, we'll probably play it here on the show and then answer your question. So we haven't done a voicemail in quite a while, but we used to do those quite often. It was a lot of fun.
That'd be cool. Hell yeah.
All right, Greg, thanks for cruising in with us, and get ready for more thrilling journeys ahead.
Broadcasting since 2010.
You're my friend. You're my new friend.